lead role. Generally, what happens, Swami calls the lead role and, gives him a chain or a ring or talks to them, gives them photographs. After the drama, Swami suddenly looks at this boy from the 7th row and calls him. Now, there were murmurs of doubt that did Swami really call him or Swami called by somebody else? But clearly it was seen from Swami's face that Swami called him, nobody else. And Swami, without talking to him, with a wave of his hand, he created a ring for this boy. He said, take Pad Namaskar and leave. And Swami said, no photographs. And Swami took Aarti and left. Everybody was shocked. First of all, Swami didn't talk to any actor. Swami called an actor who hasn't acted well all throughout the practice sessions. Swami called him from the 7th row, didn't speak to him, gave him a ring and sent him back. There was no conversation at all. And Swami said, okay, now Aarti and now I'll leave. Everybody was, asking him what happened. What was your feeling? Yeah, did that bhavam come out during the acting? And then upon further requests and questions, they got to know that in order to act like a thirsty man, he hadn't taken water for the last 48 hours. Just because he wanted that role so badly, he wanted to do it for Swami. He said, whatever might happen, I cannot expect this role to go to somebody else because this is one chance that I'm going to get in so many years. Swami hasn't spoken to me much. I am a student, but I don't have that physical proximity that a lot of others do. And he said, this is my last throw of the dice. I'm not going to have water. Let Swami see that what I can do for him. And Swami in that moment calls him from the 7th row, gives him a ring and goes away. When we talk about man's love for God, this is the way God gives back. When you think of this incident, a lot of people might go thirsty for 48 hours. A lot of people do go thirsty for 48 hours. We fast. We have our own convictions and devotion towards God. But at that moment, how much do you want God? How much love do you want? How much love do you want to give to God? And this is what God gives back. He never said that I'm going to do this. He only upon further requests and questions from a lot of people that what had happened, yet did Swami tell you anything? And very casually he said, oh, I just went thirsty. And that is why I was able to act so well because I really felt thirsty on stage. This is the first aspect of what happens when man loves God and how God gives it back, how God knows what you're doing for him. That acknowledgement is always there. So when we always wonder what it takes to be close to God, what it takes to attract Swami's love, what it takes for Swami to be there with you and show his, divine presence, it's not always something extravagant that we have to do as devotees. Swami is not asking us to pray on one leg. All he's asking us is to have that bhavam, is to have that feeling, is that mini sacrifice. What can you do? What he did, because he was about to be expelled from the drama because of his lack of acting. And there is this thing amongst us actors. We'd like to believe that we are decent at acting. That how can Swami talk to somebody who doesn't know acting? But that's the whole point. It's not about acting. Swami says, if I want a good acting, I can get actors who are 1,000 times better than you are. But what he wants is that feeling. And once that feeling is there, God's love is right there to be tapped. So this was one experience I thought I would share because this is a person who's very close to me. And when I joined in 2005, he had told this experience that had happened with him. There's one more experience that comes to my mind, and please feel free to stop me if somebody would like to share on these lines. It was Swami's 70th birthday, and a lot of Sevadals come from across the country to serve because there's a huge sea of humanity that comes on Swami's 70th and 75th and 80th birthdays. And mostly every state sends their Sevadal in Parthi to serve because, when you have so many people in Parthi, a lot of sewages, a lot of things tend to get stuck also. A lot of things tend to be overwhelmed. The infrastructure isn't that capable to handle 10 lakh or 15 lakh people. So you need some more manpower to make life easy for the devotees who are flowing in such huge numbers. So what had happened, I think one day before Swami's birthday, was the sewage in front of the Gopuram gate was badly choked. And it was so badly choked that there was an area wherein 10 to 15 feet of dirty water was being stuck and the entire road was getting blocked. Yeah, there was traffic getting blocked. The devotees were not able to move around the area freely. And a lot of sevadals were there, but the water was so dirty. The sewage water was so dirty. It was so filthy that, how much of a devotion you have, that selfish instinct kicks in. And the first feeling is, let somebody else do it. I am doing my bit. I'm serving Swami. I'm helping him, but let this job be done by somebody else. I don't want to do it. There was a Sevadal volunteer from the state of Orissa, if I'm not wrong. And he was observing this, that no Sevadal volunteer wants to go inside that dirty 15 feet water ditch, remove the blockage, and solve the problem. What he does is, he says, I will do this for Swami. This is my gift to Swami on his 70th birthday. What nobody is willing to do, I will do it for him. This man, he dives inside that 10 feet deep water, dirty slush quagmire that I might say. He removes the blockage. You can imagine all sorts of things in that sewage. He removes the blockage. He's drenched in filth, but he has a beaming smile on his face because he was able to do this. He was able to solve the problem. The problem was completely gone and things were getting back to normal. He didn't want to impress anyone. He didn't want to impress his state president. He didn't want to, he put an impression on his bosses over there. He just said, this is my birthday gift to Swami. This is all I can do for him. This is my love for him. The birthday got over. And after the birthday is over, when the Sevadal, the volunteers, they have to go back, Swami used to bless them with all these vibhuti packets and used to give them Pad Namaskar in the Kulwant Hall on a certain particular date where Swami used to talk only to Sevadal people. And this man was sitting in the first row. It just so happened. And Swami came, and I think it was the 26th or 27th of November. And Swami comes in. Swami doesn't talk to him, doesn't look at him, but Swami stands right in front of him. Swami turns back and he declares to the entire audience sitting there. Swami says, for the sacrifice that this man made for me a few days back, I have decided that this is his last birth. He shall not be born again. When we talk about man's love for God, what special thing he did? He just did his duty, what he was supposed to do for. A lot of people were there to do their duties. But what he did was, with Swami in his heart, he said, this is my gift to Swami. What nobody else is willing to do, I will do it. And he didn't expect anything in return. This was his gift to Swami. And what did Swami give back? Swami said, for that sacrifice you have made, this is your last birth. This is man's love for God and how God gives back. I remember Swami once told my father in the year 1980, and my father and my younger Chachaji was there in the interview room, and Swami said, I am God, but I'm weak at one thing, and that is mathematics. You give me one and I'll give you 1,000. Swami said, use that, exploit it. I'm there. But the thing is, you all love others. You all distribute your love to someplace else. Only when you're down and out and you have no other way out, you come to me. Swami expresses this and shows this on a daily basis in all our lives as well, that when we show a little bit towards him, what he gives us is much more than what we even imagined that he could give us. So I'd say this is the first aspect that I would like to, I'm sure we have discussed all these things, but when Swami can talk on love every day for 80 years, I think it's only valid that, all of us, we remind ourselves on a daily basis what kind of a God we have and how he behaves and how he's willing to behave in such a way. All we have to do is give him that one step. This is man's love for God and how God gives it back. So before I move on to the second facet, I would love to share thoughts from all of you. Please, Saram. Anyone? Brother Siddharth?
I think you expressed very, very beautifully the importance of the thirst. I think thirst word goes extremely well in the first example that you gave about hunger for God. I think we have a lot discussed on that hunger for God, the interest in God, the keen, not just interest, I would say maybe a craving for God, pining for God, which goes very well with the thirst. So I think unless we have that, obviously, and that is the only step that Bhagwan always expects. Rest everything he does. And yeah, I think God being weak in mathematics is advantageous for us because we do little bit and we get substantial benefits from him. And once we start getting those benefits, obviously we lose our mathematics because then we give ourselves to him. And that's a beautiful relationship that has between devotee and God. But anybody else to want to share? Because I think both the experiences have summed up extremely well all that we discussed about our relationship with Bhagwan. Anybody disagrees? Let me ask, be a devil's advocate.
I think I'll just add one. I think I'll just add one small thing. It just hit me when you mentioned the word thirst. I remember Swami had come for darshan, and students had noticed that they hadn't, seated in front of Swami. So all the students rushed in a very indisciplined way, so-called indisciplined way, so that they can get the first row. And there was this VIP who told Swami, "Swami, look at your students, so brash, so rash, so indisciplined. There's no sense of discipline." And Swami said, "Hello, mister. Outside, boys get run behind film stars and actors and sportsmen. Here, my boys are running after me. Among everything, and then Swami said, a thirst for God is much better than the thirst for those outside things." So when you mention that word thirst, this experience comes to my mind. So how did Swami give that VIP a piece of his mind?
No, absolutely. I think it was, you explained in quick time, but I think that was something which is very hilarious then happened. And it was, I think, during, and these are multiple times these experiences happened because
right.
I think in Vrindavan, one of the sessions when, we were rushing when Swami said, all of you come inside for a third session. And I think I will also name the person who actually complained against us because I was there when I saw his stick flying in the air when boys were rushing through on the steps of Thrai Vrindavan. And that was V.K. Narasimhan. And he was very angry on the boys. And he straight away, before Swami could sit on the Jula, he just gave up himself and said, "Swami, your boys are terrible." And Swami heard, and we were shivering in fear because probably this was our last day kind of. And then eventually Swami heard him out nicely. And then Swami said the same thing, what you said, that, outside boys, they run for film stars. Here, the boys are running for God. And then Swami saved us, and Swami gave a very important message for all of us. And I think the only person whom we need to run for is God and nothing more. And I think two things, maybe as a homework, again, I'm just taking a leaf of what Rishabh said. This has been already discussed, but just to repeat that we all need to introspect that how much hungry we are for God. Okay, that's a very personal sadhana, is not for the open public, but how much hunger we have for God, how much priority we give it to him. Because hunger means what priority we give it to him. Does he stand number one in our list and we are willing to give up everything for him, or we want to keep him number 2, 3, 4, depends upon how our needs are. And that is a homework which will give us that insight that whether we are reaching that level or not. And I think Usha Aunty has raised her hand.
Yeah, both these examples were awesome, absolutely. And even it's like a mother, Swami is like a mother. The mother can shout at the child and say anything, but how dare anyone else says anything about her child? She'll immediately come and rushed to the rescue of the child. So this is what it reminded me of. And another small experience my aunt had, she's no more, she used to stay in Parthi forever. I mean, I don't know, 40 years. So she used to sit at the back with the, near the cooler, ladies' side cooler. And suddenly she saw Swami came out and all the small boys, cool boys, rushed and crowded around him and, caught hold of his robe and, sort of almost, he couldn't move. He was so crowded, attacked by the boys. So she just said in her mind, she said, ye to sab bhooke hain, Swami ke, bhooke hain ye. Just said that in her mind. And that's it, finished. Then after darshan, he was going back from the ladies' side and she was sitting there at the, I think, second line or something, at the back near the cooler. And he looks at her, sab bahut bhooke hain. Exactly the same word. Exactly the same word. Sab bahut bhooke hain. So just remembered when you all talked about thirst for God. So this struck me. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Auntie. I think that's a key takeaway for us to introspect how much hunger we have for God. Do we give him the number one priority in our life above all? And I think that can bring Swami in our life even more vividly. He is already in our life. It's just that we take that one step towards him and then he becomes extremely visible in our lives. And we have got multiple experiences on this, which we have shared and probably at different points in time, we'll keep sharing about it. But that's a key takeaway. Okay, anybody else before Rishabh takes up the next facet? Okay, Rishabh, over to you.
Thank you. So the first facet here, what we have discussed is your love for God and how God gives you back unknowingly, unexpectedly. But I think one of the major things that we come across in our lives on a day-to-day basis is not everything is hunky-dory. Not everything goes on as per our plan. Not everything is perfect. When you're happy, thinking of Swami is easy. In my experience, I could be wrong. Like, somebody might say that when you're in difficulty, only you would have to remember God. No, in my case, when I'm happy, I think of Swami more, because when I am in pressure, when I am challenged, you tend to, or at least I tend to obsess over the problem so much that I might end up finding a solution. But at the end of the problem, I think, how much have I thought about Swami in this? You obsess over yourself so much, you have so much self-belief that which might not be the case at the end when you fail. But so the second facet is when you are faced with challenges, when Swami puts the pot on a boiling temperature, how much do you crave for him? How much do we distribute our love to him more than we do to others? So I think I will start with this one experience of my father in the year 1982 when he had just finished his BCom in Puttaparthi. He was in the first batch. And after his BCom, he was a waiting boy. He was waiting for Swami to tell him whether to go and do MCom or do something else or go home. So it was in the month of March where it was the vacation time and all the students had gone home. And my father says there were only 7 students in the entire campus. And somebody knew how to sing, somebody did not know, somebody knew how to play the instrument, somebody did not know. But every day, twice a day, Swami used to come inside the bhajan hall with those 7 students, and they used to be bhajan for 1 hour. It doesn't matter how you sang, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter how you played an instrument. Swami didn't have a choice, unfortunately. It was only those 7 students who had stayed back, so Swami had to tolerate those students. My father said I was a B grade singer, but in those 2 months, I became an A grade singer because Swami didn't have an option. And my father says the test is this. Imagine you are among 500 students and Swami doesn't talk to you. It's acceptable to you. But when you are among the 7, Swami has no option but to look at you. Swami has the talent to ignore you even then. And when you're ignored at that point, then comes the fire, because you stayed back. You are the waiting boy. Your ego is telling you that, you've stayed here for Swami. Swami is entitled. It's Swami's duty to speak to you. And when Swami doesn't, it breaks your heart. So my father says Swami had already started to give him the silent treatment a couple of months earlier, but come this time, with only those 7 boys and Swami, and the father said Swami didn't speak to me for the weeks. The other 6 boys, Swami used to call them inside his house, make him press his feet, a lot of things, a lot of physical proximity, but not to him. One day it so happened that there was a small village near, now Puttaparthi was a small village then, but there was an even smaller village next to Puttaparthi then, the Brahmanpalli, if I remember correctly. And Swami had to inaugurate a school there. Swami said, I will take all the boys and we'll go to the function, we'll distribute saris and dhotis and food packets, and all of you come with me. There was a group of some devotees and VIPs and students, and a total of a group of 15 people. One person was left out of that group, and that was my father. And my father got to know that he's been left out. And without going for that evening's bhajan session, and in Puttaparthi, they say your presence might be ignored, but your absence is noticed. His absence was noticed that day. He was in his room. He had taken out his shirt. He was in his vest, and he was sobbing uncontrollably. But Swami, what is this? Why are you not talking to me? What have I done wrong? I have stayed back. I have done all you told me to. I follow your lessons. I follow your teachings. I do everything. I respect my parents. What have I done to deserve this treatment? And that too with 7 students there. It's not that, physically you could miss me. You can't. You can't even physically miss me. I know you can look through me, but physically you can't miss me. And he was sobbing, and that sobbing turned into hysterical sobbing. It was bad, and there was tears on the floor. And in the year 1979, my father had played the role of Ramakrishna, and Swami had told him then, in the year 1979, that if you want to feel my presence, if you want me to be there in front of you, you have to sob for me. You have to cry for me. You have to show that hunger, that desire. And my father went in front of Swami's photograph and said, Swami, you told me this, and I'm doing exactly right, exactly that. I'm hysterically sobbing in front of you. I'm begging for you. Please don't take me there. At least talk to me. At least tell me what wrong have I done. And like they show in the movies, there's a knock in the door. And my father was completely convinced that this is Swami who has come. My father immediately, he wiped his tears. He wore his shirt again. He tidied up his hair. And the moment he opened the door, of course, there was an anticlimax. It wasn't Swami. It was the then ashram caretaker, Mr. Chiranjeevi Rao. And he was standing there with a poker face. And he said, are you so-and-so? He said, yes, Swami, I'm Tribhuvan Sachdeva. Are you okay? He said, Swami, yes, sir, I'm okay. No, Swami is a little concerned about you. He told me, go and talk to that chap. He's crying. He said, no, sir, I'm not crying. He said, hey, I can see your eyes are red. And then he left. My father closed the door and he started sobbing hysterically once again. He said, Swami, you heard my prayers. You absolutely heard my prayers. You told me 3 years back that I have to cry for you. I have to show that thirst for you in the face of challenges and tests. I know you will respond. And the moment he was just talking, he was letting his heart out to Swami at this point, there's another knock at the door. And this time he's confident it's Swami. He opens the door. Once again, it's an anticlimax. It's not Swami. It was engineer Jay Kumar at that point, who was the engineer for the mandir. He was there, and 6'5", the 5-inch tall man. He was close to my father because his son was my father's junior in hostel. And he said, Tribhuvan, are you okay? He said, yes, sir, I'm okay. And he noticed that, Chiranjeevi Raoji also had asked the very same question, are you okay? He said, sir, what happened? And then he asked, Tribhuvan, did something happen between you and Swami? His face could reveal everything, but his words said, no, nothing happened. And then my father asked, why are you here? And then he said that, Swami was was finally sanctioning the list of the students who are supposed to go with him to the mandir, he had a paper and pencil in his hand, and suddenly he dropped everything and he said, "Hey, you go there, that Tribhuvan Sachdeva, he's sobbing. You go and tell him Swami is happy. Don't worry, don't cry so much. Something will happen to you." And Swami urgently got up. He immediately sent him to the room, and I am here, I'm panting, I'm running, because Swami literally had stopped all work and he was only interested in making sure that you are fine. That's why the both of us were here. Everybody was put to the job that please make sure he doesn't cry so badly that he's fine. Swami's like, hey, the blame is going to come on me. And that's why I'm here. Are you fine? And my father said, I'm fine. He again closed the door and he started sobbing hysterically once again, thanking Swami. That Swami, you remembered. You stuck to your word. 3 years back, what you told me, that I'm supposed to pine for you. I'm supposed to be thirsty after you. I did that and you responded. You kept up your part of the deal in the face of challenge, in the face of all these tests when I remembered you. That evening, my father goes for bhajans and Swami notices his presence. And Swami comes close to him, gives a double pat on his cheek and says, hysteria, hysteria. Who does like that? Hysteria. And my father was a little embarrassed because of all that he had done. At that point, the humanness takes over. You forget that you were trying for Swami, but the very fact that Swami had stopped all the proceedings just to make sure you don't cry is a source of some embarrassment that, you wasted Swami's time. And when Swami said hysteria, hysteria, he passed and then he caught hold of my father's hair and said, no, this is love. This is love. And Swami left. And naturally, my father's name was included in the list again, and he had gone there for the distribution. So I think this one experience, honestly, I didn't know this experience until a couple years ago. There's a source that, when I got to know this, and when I asked my father, he said, yes, this is one experience. But the thing is, at that point, physical accessibility to Swami was so easy that you might have an experience every other day. Even being with Swami, being close to his feet, touching his feet, getting his Pad Namaskar, there is a test of fire that comes your way. There is a challenge. A lot of people say that, we came late to Swami. But Swami says, imagine those people who came to me in the 40s and 50s and they regret. Why? Because they didn't know that I was God at that point. I used to talk to them 24 hours a day and they didn't know me who I was. And here you are luckier than those people. At least you know I'm God. At least you know what actions to take henceforth. How much can we show love towards God in the face of challenge? In the face of such challenge that God himself is the challenge here. God himself is asking you to introspect what wrong or right you may have done. But we need to follow that dictum that he has laid in front of us. Show the thirst. Make sure that you know that he loves you. Maybe he's trying to teach us a lesson. Maybe he's trying to teach us a lesson for our own progress, our own transformation. That day was a watershed moment in my father's life. Why? Because when Swami told him 3 years back that when you shed tears for me, when you want me, I come in front of you. But the test of that dictum came 3 years later. And when that test was passed, that experience remains with you throughout your life. Whenever there's a challenge, I stuck to that dictum. Swami came to me. I will do that again. He will come to me once again. So this is how God gives you back. Sometimes it's not just giving you a present. Sometimes it's giving you a lesson. That in the later years of our life, we get to know that it was the most valuable gift that we could receive from Swami. And that is a lesson of growth, our own spiritual growth in our faith and in our love for him. I think there is one more incident I would like to share with you, but before that, I would love to know your thoughts, and so that we can proceed. Yeah, anyone?
I think it was absolutely, I heard this incident from your dad earlier, I think one of the Samarpan sessions he had given. And I could replay the entire event the way you are beautifully narrating it. And again, it is a example of once you are thirsty for God, definitely God comes in. There's no way that he cannot escape from his devotees, for sure. He can escape from anything else, but not his devotees. The only difference is how intense we are, asking for him. And then one more thing, maybe I can add to your thought, is many times we receive this question in study circles or even otherwise, that God does answer a prayer or no, because many times I prayed but nothing happened, and it has happened in our lives also. But the beauty is, even when he is silent, he's answering our prayers, because he doesn't want certain things that we have asked for. He doesn't want that to happen at that time. That's why he's silent. So he's constantly answering our prayers. The only thing is we expect him to answer in our language and not his language, which is actually the best. So every time we pray to him, he does answer a prayer, either straight away or he remains silent. When he's silent, we'll have to wait, because he knows, he can see the past, present, future. He knows what is good for us. And we just need to be patient, to wait for him to respond the way he wants to respond, because that is the best response that we will get. Not in our language, but in his language, which is the best always. So, no, but beautifully, I think this is, again, we have to kind of go deeper into our own life and find out many times, God has come in our lives when we needed him the most. I mean, there's no question, no doubt about it. And there's no debate about it. Absolutely. He always comes. And in fact, I can add one more line, is more than us, God is madly in love with his devotees. We may try to give as much love to him, but it's an iota, or maybe not even an iota of in front of the love that he has for us. And I mean, once once you are in his fold, he goes gaga over it. We are his prized possession. When a child gets something in his hand, he tells everybody, "This is my prized possession." God is like a child. Once we have him in his life as his gift, his own gift. In fact, we belong to him by all means. Only thing is we acknowledge that we belong to him, and that is a time when he takes us as his prized possession, and is extremely happy about it. And then goes gaga over it, saying that he belongs to me, or he or she belongs to me. I mean, there are again set of experiences on this, but driving.
I think I can add to this.
Go ahead.
For the water project, somebody had come with a check of 100 CR, and Swami said, "I don't want this money." And there was one student who had given a check of close to, I think, 50 rupees or 100 rupees, and Swami took that check and paraded around the entire veranda. "See, my student, what they have done for me. See," because that was with love. And Swami brandishes that. Swami tells everyone that what my students, with what love that they have done for me. So I think when you said that, my mind went to that experience.
Absolutely, and that 50 rupees was earned by that student by washing his own clothes for 1 month.
Yes,
he had saved that money by not paying to the dhobi and washing his, because otherwise whatever money that we get as a child is our dad's money in that sense. Right. But he had earned it in that way by washing his own clothes for a month and gave it to Swami.
The whole fact of the matter is, after rejecting a check of the 100 crore, when you come and brandish a 50 rupee check, it's a message to everyone there. That, like Swami says, all the wealth in this universe is under my toe. If I move my toe a bit, and all the wealth will follow. So I don't need your checks. All I need is your love. And the money will follow when it has to follow.
Absolutely. Yeah. Once we have his love, we are the richest people in the world.
Right.
Yeah, Pratibha Aunty, you want to say something?
Yeah, you all are all aware of the challenge that I faced. This open brain surgery in December. So 2 months, not December, January, 2 months back. Okay. And this surgery, मैं क्या बताऊं? Like, I was unaware of it. I was losing vision. Still, all ladies must be understanding that we try to, it was total negligence on our part. Like, I'm quite aware that I'm losing my vision, but still, your duties, you tend to like forget about your problems. ये होता है generally ladies के साथ. अभी ये देखना, अभी वो देखना, अभी इनको देखना priority है, and all that. स्वामी है ना, तो स्वामी तो है ही आपके साथ. तभी, December, my daughter comes after 2 years, and she says that I think so, Mama, we'll go for checkup and all that, whole body checkup and all. And मेरे मुंह से निकलता है कि I think so there is some serious problem with my eyes. तो वो and then I said this and I walked out. I went to the kitchen, जैसे होता है prepare करने and all that. She said कि I have this appointment and you have to go there. I'm just saying challenges है, but Swami is walking ahead of you, behind you तो है ही, आगे है. He knows what to do, what that his presence actually watches over you. This is the fact that I've experienced this time, you know, during this time. It was so difficult time. One problem, I had COVID. Before that, I had this brain ka thing that was a tumor of 2.8 centimeter. So it was, and it had become very hard, very, so the surgery was to take from the nostrils, it was to be pulled out. Okay. So this was all thing which was decided by when my daughter took me to that eye specialist कि ट्यूमर है और इसकी तो हालत खराब होगी, सबकी हालत खराब. पता नहीं, स्वामी ने मुझे फियर भी नहीं दिया. मीन्स आई वाज सो मच एट ईज. उन लोगों को लग रहा था ये इसको, मेरे माय ब्रदर इवन कमेंटेड कि तेरा यही मस्ती करने के वजह से आज ये हाल हुआ है. हाँ बोले आई डोंट नो, मेरे को फियर नहीं है स्वामी, मैं कहाँ से, आई नो यू आर टेकिंग केयर और आपकी इच्छा से सब होती है. यू आर देयर, why should I fear? मतलब ही नहीं आ रहा है, and they are thinking that I am not serious about this thing. I'll take little time, Siddharth, if you don't mind. तो उसके बाद this I was taken to the doctor. 29 December was fixed, and somehow doctor said, let me try this medicine. If it could soften a little that so that it can be suctioned out easily. So that's fine. उसके बाद वो दवाई medication में चला. There was no improvement, nothing. Then I went to Satna, came back and I got COVID. Imagine ये COVID मेरा after surgery होता तो burst कर जाता, because there was no cough, no sneeze for 2 months. This is the must. If you are getting this brain surgery done, who is taking care of all this? You know, the COVID happened. The date further got postponed. Then it was fixed on 27th January. Okay. And everything was fixed. I was, and जब मैं car में, when my husband was taking me to the hospital, and just before approaching the hospital, you know, you won't believe there was so much joy within me. And I heard Swami's voice. It has happened in past also. Why fear when I'm here? So says Baba, Satya Sai Baba, my love. That is what I say. And my husband also started singing. I said, आपने ये भजन लगाया है क्या? तो बोले नहीं, मैंने भजन तो नहीं लगाया. And he was also singing joyfully. And अब सोचो मेरे वो state था. And I went myself, me and my husband, मेरे को आराम से डाला. And they were always observing my BP. And BP क्या, मैं तो पूरे समय नाम स्मरण में था. मेरे को मालूम है सब चीज का आंसर नाम स्मरण है. उनका लव है. I could always feel. And I was visualizing all the time कि स्वामी देखो ऑपरेशन करने वाले आप हो और जिस पे कर रहे हो वो भी आप हो. आपका लव है, जो करना है आप जानो. Like I was very much at ease. So 7 to 8 times morning, 4:35, 5 o'clock वो लोग ले जाने वाले थे. तब तक मेरी BP थोड़ा भी फ्लक्चुएट नहीं हुआ. It was constant 180 by I think so 180 by 120 ऐसी कुछ था जो आप लोग समझो. It was standard and it was very much constant throughout. And उसके बाद मुझे एनेस्थीसिया देके मैं तो I was at rest, very much at ease. And यहाँ मेरे husband को पूछने आता है. Now there, that is what then the doctor comes out, leaving me on the table and says to my husband कि यहाँ पे एक problem आ गई है. It is hard. It cannot be pulled out from the nostril. And what I was aware before that was कि nostril से होगा. I said, Swami, I tried also. कि अरे सांस लेके देखते हैं खाली मुंह से कर पाते हैं कि नहीं. 2 मिनट में I used to get exhausted. I said, Swami, you breathe through me. Because मेरे लिए वो तो दिख रहा है, अगर मैं conscious होके कर रही हूँ मैं नहीं कर पा रही. तो you are there, you breathe through me. You won't believe. Doctor comes out and asks my husband कि मैं तो pull out नहीं कर सकता हूँ. I'll have to do open brain surgery. He talks to my elder brother who is also a doctor, very renowned doctor. और मेरे डॉक्टर ब्रदर ने बोला कि मैं ग्लोबली ऑल द डॉक्टर फ्रेंड्स से मैं पूछता हूँ, प्लीज डोंट गो अहेड विद ऑपरेशन। यहाँ मेरे हस्बैंड को स्वामी ने प्रॉम्प्ट किया विदाउट इवन आस्किंग कंसेंट, क्योंकि उनका कंसेंट है, अभी जस्ट वेट, ही इज नॉट गिविंग कंसेंट, जस्ट वेट, ही जस्ट सेज डॉक्टर प्लीज गो अहेड विद द सर्जरी। माय हस्बैंड गिव्स द कंसेंट। बोला कि आई डोंट नो हाउ आई सेड, it just came out, prompt किया स्वामी, it just came out. मेरे brother, he got annoyed, he got naturally बहुत ज्यादा डर गया था, he was, and he said स्वामी आप जानो, and he said how can he cannot wait for my, I'm just now also I'm asking, I'm getting answers, and he just gave, बोला trust स्वामी, and मुझे तो कुछ नहीं मालूम है, जब मुझे मेरी सर्जरी हो गई, when I came to consciousness, और मैं देख रही हूँ कि कॉन्शियसनेस आके, अरे स्वामी मैं तो बहुत अच्छे से सांस ले रही हूँ, लगता है ये लोग ने ऑपरेशन ही नहीं किया, यू नो। देन आई कॉट वन ऑफ द सीनियर रेसिडेंट हु वाज देयर, आई डोंट नो उसको भी क्या हुआ, इतना प्यार से मेरा देख रेख कर रहा। हमने सुनो डॉक्टर साहब पहले ये बताओ मेरी सर्जरी हुई है कि नहीं। मैम यू रिलैक्स, यू डोंट टॉक। आई सेड या मेरी सर्जरी हुई है, हाँ हाँ यू रिलैक्स प्लीज, आई एम इन आईसीयू, ओके प्लीज। और फिर वो चले गए, फिर दूसरा आया उसका जूनियर, हाँ बोले मेरे को एक क्वेश्चन का आंसर क्यों नहीं दे रहे हो, मेरी सर्जरी हो गई है क्या। बोले कि मैम आपको शिफ्ट करना है आईसीयू में, यू रिलैक्स, एवरीथिंग इज गुड एंड ऑल दैट। मैं चली गई आईसीयू में, वहां पे मेरे हस्बैंड को अलाउ किया होगा, मेरे हस्बैंड की तो हवा उड़ी हुई थी, 12 बजे हुई थी उसके इनके चेहरे में। he just came and he saw that I was breathing, he was so relaxed। वो रिलैक्स होते कि उनका हाथ मैंने पकड़ा बगल से, मैं बोली कि मेरे को स्वामी के नाम से बताओ कि मेरी सर्जरी हो गई है। बोले या एवरीथिंग वेंट ऑन फाइन बाय स्वामी इज ग्रेट, एवरीथिंग गुड। हम बोले वाह, तो मैं तो दोनों नाक से सांस ले रही हूँ, एंड स्वामी मेरे को मैं एंड आई एम फिट एंड फाइन, मैं आई वाज सो हैप्पी, आई डिड नॉट रियलाइज दैट कि अभी इतनी बड़ी सर्जरी हुई है। It was a big surgery with 26 stitches on my head, पूरा कवर्ड था स्टिचेस से, एंड कुछ रियलाइज नहीं किया। अभी भी पीछे मुड़ के देखती हूँ, देयर आर मेनी एक्सपीरियंसेस, आई शेयर सम लेटर, अभी भी पीछे मुड़ के देखती हूँ, मेरे स्वामी वाज मच अहेड, he was taking care of me, and he did not even, that pain also I didn't feel at all, you know। एंड माई हस्बैंड 4 दिन पहले बोले कि आप तो बिंदास थे, आप तो ऑपरेशन, आई सेड यस ऑफ कोर्स। मेरे फ्रेंड्स मेरे को कॉल करते हैं, यहाँ भी है बहुत काफी लोग, सब ज्यादा डरे हुए थे, मैं तो बहुत निश्चिंत थी। मैं सोची काहे लोग इतना क्यों डर रहे हैं, लाइक इट्स फाइन, जो है वो मेरे को ये ऑल द टाइम स्वामी मेड मी फील, ये स्वामी का लव है, आई वाज स्विमिंग इन दैट लव, and this love I experienced during the whole time when I did not feel the pain of surgery. I only felt his love, and I survived through his love. I'm sitting and talking, it's his love. यही I wanted to share। ये challenge है, challenge feel भी नहीं होने दिया। Yeah, thank you so much.
I think very, very beautifully explained. I think we were also waiting in the past, you were to share this experience, the entire episode, how it went about.
Yeah.
And I think once he's part of our lives, or center of our lives, in fact, we don't have to worry about anything else. We are in an absolutely safe position.
Correct.
So very nice. Thank you for sharing, Auntie.
I think Swami tells that, no, that my grace and love act as a morphine injection. What has to happen will happen, but you won't know that it's there. I take away the pain, and when you look back, you feel this could have been a much nastier journey than it actually was.
Right.
Absolutely.
Like somebody told Swami, you know, a snake bit me, and Swami said, be happy that a scorpion didn't bite you. You're just ill now. Had a scorpion bit you, you would have died. So you don't know how Swami is shielding us. We don't know. It could have been much worse.
Absolutely. So Rishabh, you go ahead. I think we have one more experience to share.
How much time do we have, Siddharth bhai?
7:29, maybe 5 more minutes.
5 more minutes. All right.
Started at 6:35. 5 more minutes.
I think there's this last incident I'd like to share with you on the second facet that we were discussing. After that, there's one more experience, but that won't take more than 15-20 seconds. So I'll merge the two. There was this student, when we talk about Swami testing you, Swami giving you the cold shoulder, Swami apparently, supposedly not taking care of you, physically being distant from you. And how do you manage that, especially when Swami's been talking to you for so long? So there was a student, in common student parlance, we call him the form boy. When you're a form boy, Swami's been talking to you every day. Swami has special physical accessibility to you. So it's a colloquial term in Puttaparthi, what our students use, that he's a boy in good form. So there was this so-called form boy, and Swami spoke to him almost every day for 3 years. Now, when Swami talks to you every day for 3 years, there is a part of you that starts thinking like Swami is your friend and Swami is not God. That delusion, that Maya that Swami puts on you. Swami says, staying close to me is like staying close to fire. You'll get burnt. When you stay too far away from me, you'll catch a cold. So be at an adequate distance and enjoy the warmth. So it's on those lines. You start taking Swami for granted. This is an experience that a lot of people have shared. When you talk to Swami so much, you start taking him for granted. And then the screws start to get a little tightened by Swami. Swami needs to bring the kite close to the kite flyer. So this student, suddenly he was playing a sport and he injures his ankle. He has a bad ligament tear in his ankle. And he wasn't worried. He's like, oh, tomorrow morning I'll go to darshan. Swami will talk to me. Swami will give me some prasadam and I'll be fine. He sits in his usual place where Swami has Swami has come to him and spoken to him for every day for 3 years. And Swami doesn't talk to him. Swami doesn't look at him. Swami goes through him. He thought that Swami has made a mistake. Swami forgot that I am here. So what he does is, he, with a lot of painstaking effort, he changes his position to where Swami was right now. And Swami ignores him then also. Swami speaks to the person in front of him, behind him, to his left, to his right, but doesn't notice him. It's not even Swami gives any eye contact. He doesn't. This irks him a bit. He feels, okay, I will try my luck again tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning again, the same thing happens. In the evening, the same thing happens. The same thing happens for a few days, for a few weeks, for an entire month. Swami doesn't look at him. That with that ligament tear of an injury that he has, in such extreme pain, he's not taking any medication. Why? Because, Swami is so easily accessible to me. Swami will do something. But that is where Swami brings up the heat. When he wants to teach you something, when he wants you to feel that how much love do you have for me, you have to show that love. And after a month, he was so unmotivated to even go to darshan. His ego had been massively deflated by Swami. And this boy, he took his bed. A lot of us students, we get a chance to take our beds and sleep right in front of Swami's house in the mandir at the ladies' gate. And he was seated on his bed and he told in anger that, Swami, had my physical mother been here, she would have taken care of me. You are nothing like my physical mother. With that anger, he goes to sleep. It was 2:30 in the night where he does this prayer. And just when he's about to go to sleep at 2:45, suddenly somebody unknown to him comes running exactly to him. In the middle in all that darkness, with 100 students, this person exactly comes to him. How do you know who that student is? He's got a blanket over his face. And he says, hey, there's somebody waiting for you outside behind the Ganesh statue. And he runs away. He gets up with all the difficulty. He was limping. He had a very bad ligament tear in his ankle. When you have that in your ankle, it's very difficult to walk. He goes there. He goes behind the Ganesh temple. And very conveniently, there's nobody else there. There are no Sevadal there. There is only this man who is 10 feet tall with the halo around his head. with a white beard, which is close to 3 feet, white hair close to 4 feet. He comes close to this boy and says, Satyasai Baba has sent me, and he wants you to tell you that he loves you so much. And that man disappears. When you come across such an experience, your mind doesn't process, because this is beyond the realms of physics. This is beyond the realms of space and time. With absolutely thoughtlessness in him, he comes back to the mandir, he goes to his bed and sleeps, thinking that it's a hallucination. Next morning, after a month, he goes and sits at the same spot where he's been sitting for close to all these years. And Swami comes straight to him and says, you got the message last night or not? And then Swami walks away. Why I have kept this experience at the end is when we talk about Swami as a mother and his motherly love, there are times we forget, or our ego makes us forget, that he is the creator of this universe. And to show his devotee how much he loves him, how much he loves you, he's willing to even surpass and break the laws of physics. He's even willing to go beyond time and the logics of space and tell you that I love you. Nothing is beyond him. Nothing surpasses him. If you feel this experience, I don't deserve this experience, we are absolutely wrong. Yeah, there were times where I used to feel the same, do I deserve an experience of this kind? But that's what Swami does. Even in the face of challenge and heat and difficulty, and when you're down, when you're not able to show that love to Swami, he always says, I will always make sure that you know how much I love you. Doesn't matter how I'm going to show you. It takes an experience of this magnitude to get you out of that delusion and ego that this man in front of you, a frail figure of 5'3", is love itself. I would like to end my formal part for this evening with this last 15-second snippet. Swami asked one student, tell me, who eats first when there is a wedding feast? And, the student was taken aback by a question. Swami asked, who eats the food first when there is a wedding feast? He says, Swami, the guests who have come. All right. After them, who eats? He says, Swami, after them, our family and relatives and distant relatives, who wait for the function to get over. Swami says, okay. After that, who eats? Swami, the bride and the groom and the parents and the close, the family, when the function is over, they eat. He thought the question and answer session is over. And then Swami asks, who eats then? He says, Swami, the waiters, the chefs, the servicemen, the people who have organized the wedding, they eat. Swami says, after them, who eats? He says, Swami, after that, if any food is left, we give it off to beggars or for charity. Swami says, after that, who eats? He says, Swami, if any food is left, we throw it in the dustbin and the street dogs come and take the leftovers. And then Swami looked into the horizon and said, when it comes to your love, I am that street dog. I come to your life, pick up the leftovers of your love. When you have distributed all your love to the entire world and nobody has come to your rescue, finally, when you have given me your leftovers of love, I still come and take those leftovers and transform your life.
My God.
So when we talk about man's love for God, I remember last week I told this, man's love for God is this much. But when you talk about God's love for man, it is 360 degrees. It is holistic. It is well-rounded. It is complete. It is limitless. I think with these few words, I'll take your leave, and I'll hope that somebody else also shares something on these lines. Thank you.
Wonderful.
I think the last piece was quite hard hitting to everybody. And that is precisely the unfortunate reality we have, because we still have faith in man's love for man and not God's love at all. And someday, that realization happens that we need God's love. And in that time, we move towards him. And once we get a taste of his love, then we realize what we have missed out. And I go back to that analogy of Kohinoor and stones. We are always, it's a very, very sad situation. We are always hungry for stones, despite Kohinoor is in front of us. In the past, we have taken this example, and that's why I'm referring to it. And despite all that, we still feel sometimes Kohinoor could be a stone, a little shiny stone, but we don't realize that's a Kohinoor. And we still hanker on for all the stones of the world. And I think that I don't want to say anything more, because we need to digest that message of Swami that we can't have him as a street dog with leftover food. We have to give him the first priority, right above everything else. And if we get that in place above everything else, including ourselves, parents, relatives, spouses, children, possessions, if we give him number one priority, I think everything, entire magic will happen. All those experiences will come to us, and our life will be completely his story, not our story. I think that's about it. If anybody else wants to add anything to this. Yeah, Bindu Bhaiya, go ahead.
Yes, no, I think we need to soak what Brother Rishabh has just shared. But just from the street dog, I think there is a beautiful way of putting up the onus on us to see and benchmark ourselves, how God aspires his devotee to be and where we are. In fact, Swami, by saying that, it reminds me also that Swami transforms us with his love for us from being a street dog to a street light. And this is the whole journey that he has undertaken by his outpouring love, to become a street light and not remain a street dog. So that was something which I remembered, which reminded me when Brother Rishabh shared. And of course, there are beautiful experiences that he has shared. We were astounded, and we really are mesmerized with Swami's love, which flows in every one of us in some way or the other, and some other day. But thanks, Rishabh, for sharing it so beautifully. And,
Pleasure, thank you.
Yeah. And when we were talking about Swami's, the vision of a bearded man, my dad will some other share when he had the darshan of Kashi Vishwanath and Kal Bhairav Sakshat in the room, when he used to have nose bleeding and a lot of problem in the childhood. But that we'll reserve for some other day. I know he's listening, but we'll have it some other day. Thanks, Brother Rishabh. Beautiful. Good I didn't miss, though I was out and I came and joined.
Pleasure. Thank you, Bhaiya. Thank you.
Thank you, Bindu Bhaiya. Anybody else before we end? Okay, I think people are still digesting what you said, Rishabh. So I think maybe.
Thank you so much, Rishabh. Thank you so much.
Yeah, God bless.
Swami bless.
Pleasure.
Swami bless.
Thank you, Rishabh. Most
Thank
beautiful
you.
experiences. Very lovely. Thank you. Sai.
Thank you, Rishabh. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Auntie. Thank you so much.
Can't thank you enough, Rishabh. Awesome.
Auntie, pleasure's mine. Thank you.
Okay, no, fantastic. I think we would like to definitely see the video again once the recording is available, because there are some messages that we need to ruminate, and that's a homework we will carry today after the session. And we need to come what we get this right, because otherwise another 10 study circle sessions and if the needle is not moving in the right direction, we'll still be stuck in the past. So that's a responsibility we assume today, that we need to get this right for us if we really want to make Swami's presence felt in our lives. So thank you very much, Rishabh. I think it was absolutely splendid.
Pleasure, Siddharth bhai. Thank you so much for having me. And
thanks
I
to you
haven't,
thanks to Swami for giving us the opportunity to listen to you and the important messages that we carry home today. And we hope to have you many more times, many more sessions in future.
Certainly, I think I kept the interest of time, right? I didn't
yes.
exceed it. Right.
No, absolutely fine. So I think we'll end with this session, and let's soak in after this, and have a wonderful next couple of weeks till we meet again. Om Samastalokaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastalokaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastalokaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय. Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, everyone.
Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.